Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. All right, let's continue, inshallah ta'ala, going over the lucid word. So the author says, may Allah have mercy upon him, the sins of the foot. Section 36. Among the sins of the foot are to walk to commit a sin. So that's very broad. Any sin. Each step is going to be a sin. Such as walking to accuse a Muslim falsely before a ruler. Here they said falsely. Maybe they should say unjustly before a ruler. It is sinful because of the harm it causes for the wrongly accused Muslim or unjustly accused Muslim. Or walking to kill someone unrightfully. Or walking for the purpose of fornicating. Or committing any prohibited sexual enjoyment. Any sin. And even if you drove there, and even if you rode your bike there. The absconding, that means running away, fleeing of a male or female slave from their owner. So, a runaway slave. Or a wife from her husband, which is going to put her into the state of nushuz, that I'm going to call rebellion. State of rebellion. Nushuz, when a woman is in a state of nushuz, then her husband is not obligated to provide for her. She loses her right to support. And she loses her right to return also, if she's in a state of nushuz. Whether that nushuz is because she ran away or because she left his house, which maybe we're going to call that also running away, without his permission, that is. Left his house without his permission, or altogether ran away. Like she disappeared or she skipped town. Or because she refuses him without any excuse to do so. Then she will lose her right to support and her right to return until she repents from that and comes back to her husband's obedience. When she repents from that and comes back to her husband's obedience, then she will regain her right to support and a turn starting at the next Fajr time. It is also prohibited for anyone who owes a right to others to run away and evade his legal responsibilities, such as a prosecution if one had intentionally killed a Muslim unrightfully, meaning there's a properly run caliphate and someone committed murder against a Muslim, and so he deserves to be executed. So what does he do? He goes on the run. That going on the run is haram. But not talking about if the kuffar want to punish him for something, so he goes on the run. For example, a debt that one must fulfill. He can't run away from that. Just disappear so that he doesn't fulfill it, or so they don't find him and take his money. Or obligatory expenditures that are due on him. Yani, supporting his wife, supporting his children. And dutifulness to one's parents. Important one there. Like, if he leaves, he will be disobeying his parents in a way that breaks their hearts. Or he will just be breaking their hearts, and he doesn't have an excuse for this leaving. Then that's haram. Or child rearing. Yani, he has to raise his child, but he runs away and doesn't raise his child. Abandons his child. So all of these are scenarios of running away, absconding, going AWOL, and a sin of the foot. Yani, these are sins of the foot. To strut arrogantly, meaning to stroll arrogantly, pompously, like to puff out his chest and have his shoulders back a little bit, for example, and his chin is high, his nose is up, and whatever else goes there, which is to walk haughtily and pompously, to step over people's shoulders if this annoys them, like in the masjid, because we sit on the floor. Except if one does so to fill a gap. So when we say stepping over their shoulders means is raising his foot up to the level of their heads, up to their faces, and then stepping over them. If this annoys them, what's an example of it not annoying them? Like the one who's doing this stepping, he is the Shaykh that all of the people love. So they, for example, they saw the foot coming, and then they're ready to get annoyed, and then they, behold, it's the Shaykh. So it's, oh, Shaykh, ahlan wa sahlan, no problem. Except if one does so to fill a gap that cannot be reached otherwise, because the people there in the masjid neglected to fill that gap, and so he stepped over their shoulders to reach that gap to sit there. Then there's no sin here. Also, maybe the imam has to get to the mimbar so he can give the khutbah, and so he has to do that. Then there's no sin here. Then it is not forbidden. To pass in front of a person performing the prayer with a barrier in front of himself, if the conditions of the sufficient barrier are fulfilled. This means to walk between that praying person and his barrier. For the barrier to be valid, it must be at least 2/3 of a cubit high and 3 cubits or less away from the praying person. There's another case where 3 cubits appeared for us. So now we have 3 cases where 3 cubits appeared. Where we saw 3 cubits before, when it came to the barrier that one uses to urinate or defecate in the open land if he's facing the Qibla or having his back to it. And also, 3 cubits between, not more than 3 cubits between the prayer rows, the ranks of the prayer. It's disliked to have more than 3 cubits. To be more than 3 cubits away from the imam or the last line, or the previous line. At least 2/3 of a cubit high this barrier should be, and 3 cubits or less away from the praying person. So that's just like, it's exactly like the barrier for the one who is urinating or defecating in an open land while facing the Qibla or turning his back to it. A cubit is the length between the elbow and the tip of the middle finger of an average length man's arm. An average man's arm. And it is said that the prayer carpet of normal length, its edge is a sufficient barrier. That's a saying. According to that, it's not permissible to step over his carpet. So basically stepping between this praying person and the edge of his carpet. And what if a person does not have a barrier? Then it's not haram to pass in front of him. Just so you know. And sometimes some people avoid that. They see a praying person, so they make big, wide turn to avoid stepping close to the praying person. That's fine if you want to do that, but it's not obligatory, just so you know. Because what really, really, really matters is what the religion says. Something's not haram, it's not haram. Doesn't mean it's the best thing to do, but still it's not haram. And you should know that it is disliked to pray without a barrier. So then don't pray just in the middle of the masjid or the middle of the musalla. Rather, go up close to the wall if you can, or if there's a chair, stand behind that chair, or the like. You say, we avoid it sometimes so as not to get scolded. Yes, that's why I'm making that comment. So then it could be said to whoever wants to scold someone for doing that thing, don't scold here. Sometimes you'd be wise. Sometimes you want to teach a person a lesson in a wise way, though. Not be a troll, but to teach someone. So extend the leg towards the holy book. The Quran, if it is close, or what it says, yes, the Quran. If it is close and not in a raised location, that Quran is close to you, and it is at the same level as your foot. Then to extend the leg. So this is correct, extending the leg. So that doesn't mean for a book to be next to your foot, because that's how some people understand this rule. Such that if a book were close to their foot, some inches away, then maybe they will think they're committing a sin, or they make another person move the book, or make the other person move his foot. So the sin is to extend the leg towards the book. That means point the foot by extending the leg towards the book. If it is not in a raised location, such as being placed on a table or on a shelf, then it's elevated. Any walking to commit what is prohibited, such as walking to a place for the purpose of consuming alcohol. So I'm not sure what's the difference between that and the very first one. To walk to commit a sin. That's like saying to walk to commit something prohibited. Then says down here, any walking to commit what is prohibited. That means to walk to commit a sin, such as walking to a place for the purpose of consuming alcohol. Or walking to leave an obligation, which also we said already. Like, such as a walking that results in leaving out the obligatory prayer in its prescribed time. Or a walking, this running away so that the woman doesn't have to fulfill her husband's rights, or the slave runs away from his master, or etc., etc. All those cases that we mentioned. Let's take a look at the Arabic here and see if there's difference. Let me pull it up. Okay, sins of the foot. وَمِن مَعَاصِي الرِّجْلِ الْمَشْيُ فِي مَعْصِيَةٍ. Amongst the sins of the foot is to walk in a sin, for a sin, for the sake of a sin. And notice here, it says in the Arabic, like what I said, بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ, without right. So what says in the English is falsely. Those don't mean the same thing necessarily. They could be, but it's not necessarily the same thing. Because falsely could mean telling a lie. بِغَيْرِ حَقٍّ means unrightfully, without the right to do so. Doesn't mean necessarily telling a lie. And what does it say down here? وَكُلُّ مَشْيٍ إِلَى مُحَرَّمٍ. And every walking towards a sin. So I don't really conceive a difference in the meaning here, except that ila means to. Every or any walking ila, to or towards, muharram, something prohibited, meaning ila ma'siyah, meaning to a sin. كالمشي إلى مكان لشرب الخمر, like walking to a place to drink wine. وتخلف عن واجب, and walking for refraining from an obligation. So let me look back up again here. Here up top, fi instead of ila. Al-mashyu fi ma'siyah, walking in sin. Like for harming the Muslim unrightfully. Or walking fi in meaning for the sake of. So that's a good word right there. Maybe even it's very clear if this word right here goes right here. لأجل ومن معاصي الرجل المشي في لأجل Masiyah. So it clarifies the meaning of fi here, meaning for the sake of walking in, meaning for the sake of a sin. But it's down here. So the biggest difference here in the Arabic is this, for me, is that appears to me, is the use of the prepositional particle. Up top at the beginning is fi. Walking fi in, meaning for the sake of a sin. And here is walking ila, walking to something forbidden, to a sin. But is there really a difference between those two? I don't know. I don't conceive it. نسأل الله تعالى أن يعلمنا آمين. May Allah grant us more knowledge. Okay, now the author is going to start with the sins of the body. Switch back. How did they translate it here? Walking to commit a sin. Walking to commit what is prohibited. So if we want to, one could say here, the first one, walking for committing a sin. And then for the second one down here, walking towards what is prohibited. Then it's just going to be a little closer to the Arabic. You said, is the first that he is walking while actively committing another sin, and the other to commit another? But he's going to be still sinful while walking. If he's walking to sin, then means he's sinful while walking. Mm-hmm. And both points also, they mention what the sin is, which is the walk. Al-Mashi, the walk, is the sin here, and also the walking is the sin here. Yes. You said in the first scenario is committing two sins, walking to commit a sin. So here the sin is the walking. And even if he didn't commit the sin yet. He didn't commit the sin yet. He's walking for it. And the second one is walking. The walking is the sin, but he didn't commit the other sin yet. He said, filling a gap. Can I elaborate more? Maybe if you have a particular question that I can answer for you. When it is lawful. When it is lawful when the person needs to fill a gap that the others didn't fill. They neglected to fill it. Like you're in the masjid and no, we didn't say prayer. Just there's open space in the masjid. You want to get to that open space. So for example, you come into the masjid and it's very crowded. And there's people right at the door. And for some reason, they didn't fill the space. Like they could have moved forward, but they didn't move forward. So they just neglected to fill that space. So you had to step over them to get to that space. Wallahu a'lam, Allah knows best.